And now, Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. And we are joined by John Purizhansky, the CEO and co-founder of Joblio. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, Deborah. It's good to see you.
Oh, I'm just thrilled. Now, before we continue our discussion, I just want to say that today's show is sponsored by Carl Greer. He wrote the book, The Necktie and the Jaguar. It is a memoir to help you change your story and find more fulfillment in your life, particularly for those of us who are, sometimes facing anxiety or a lot of stress. I suggest picking up The Necktie and the Jaguar. Now, John, thanks so much for joining us. When I first heard about Joblio, I couldn't wait to have you on our show to explain what this is about. Would you please take it away?
So Joblio is a technology-powered social impact project that connects employers and employees globally, irrespective of where they are and irrespective of what their skill set is. It's like LinkedIn or Indeed for low and unskilled labor migrants who make up the majority of the labor migrant community globally.
Give us a concrete example. You can even say, we might have workers from this country and then we match them up with this country. Can you tell us explicitly? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So let me put a little color on this. So for hundreds of years, it's worked exactly the same way. If you are, for instance, a sophisticated, educated person in India, say you're an engineer, and for upward social mobility, you'd like to find work in Canada or the UK or Italy, right? You're likely to be able to figure this out by yourself. You're going to go on the internet, you're going to read the regulations, you're going to put together the documentation that's required for you to find work abroad and move abroad. If, however, you are low skilled or unskilled, which, by the way, makes up 80 to 90% of labor migrants in the world, you lack that sophistication. So historically, you have had to turn to various middlemen and agents of sorts all throughout the world, right, to help you find work and help you move. However, these agents charge you money. Well, unfortunately, that's how it works, right? And they create an informational barrier basically by being a buffer between yourself and the employer. Often, typically, there will be a network of these agents who connect the mostly unsophisticated labor migrants with employers, and we remove that barrier by creating transparency and direct connectivity.
That's absolutely outstanding. And very often that middle person, right? They charge a lot of money to people to help find work, right? And often, sometimes they don't even follow through. Can you talk about that and talk about what these workers have to go through very often when they're looking for work, and even if they find the work, what happens on the other end?
Oh, sure. So in the status quo is that the agent, so-called agent, is really a salesperson interested in charging the worker more money. So they present the opportunity, at best, it's a grossly misrepresented opportunity because they want it to look more attractive so that they can charge more money. The employer is often unaware of this. So the New Zealand TV, for instance, 2 years ago did a special on Chinese New Year where they found a bunch of Chinese labor migrants just sitting on a bench. And they're like, what are you doing here? They were promised work in New Zealand. They showed up. They paid $100,000 each to somebody who's disappeared and the work does not exist at all. So what we do is we destroy that informational barrier because guess what? Everybody has one of these things now, right? Smartphone technology has enabled us to become a single source of truth platform where employers are able to post offers and employees are able to review them and accept employment internationally without having to pay for it. So which basically brings me to what the ecosystem is. There is an ecosystem, and the ecosystem is supposed to consist of 4 players. It's the worker who today gets cheated, abused, human rights violations stem from these inefficiencies, and the worker borrows the money. The worker does not have the money. He lives in Nepal or she in the Philippines, whatever, Africa, Central Asia. They borrow the money because they think that they're going to be able to repay back the loan when they arrive. but when they arrive, they realize that the work does not exist or the opportunity had been grossly misrepresented, so they're unable to pay back the loan and they run away, which is why 70% of newly arrived labor ran away from their employers within the first 90 days in the EU, which brings them in by tens of millions, right? The second participant in the ecosystem is the employer. Today, the employer is not able to directly select the staff or interview them, and they suffer from churn, inefficiencies, and loss of revenues because people run away. The third participant in the ecosystem is the government of the host country, which today, because of how the ecosystem is set up, gains illegal immigration, violations in human rights, and loses in taxation, because when employees run away, the government is unable to tax the employer-employee relationships. And of course, the fourth participant in this ecosystem is the government of the originating country. That's the country where the labor migrants originate from. Their gross domestic product largely depends on foreign remittances. And what happens today is their citizens, they get abused, but also they can't send money back home because they're not working properly, right? So this ecosystem, unfortunately, has a parasitic element in it today, which is the middleman. And when I say the middleman, it's really a system of the middleman. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about Southeast Asia or Africa or Central Asia or Latin America, it works the same way. So the middleman creates an informational barrier on which the middleman's business model is founded. And that's what Joblio does. Joblio removes the middleman by way of technology from the ecosystem, creates the truth, transparency, compliance, right? And now employers who are so desperate for staff are able to connect with prospective job applicants directly and interview them, test their skills, process, and the employee, of course, pays nothing. So we're trying to change the world by bringing transparency and the truth into an otherwise non-transparent industry, really.
Does the employer pay a fee? Is that how this works?
Yeah. Yes, of course. So the employer gladly pays a SaaS fee. We're a technology company, after all, right? So the employer pays the SaaS fee, which is a part of the employer's budget. So the employer has a budget, and the employer says, okay, I will budget X amount of dollar, euro, yen, dinar, whatever, dirham, shekel. So the employer says, okay, this is my budget. Part of the budget is the technology fee. And that's why the employer wins tremendously, right? Because the employer is within the budget, and now the employer has the staff that the employer needs. The employer is able to connect with the staff directly, right? Interview the staff and bring efficiency to itself and to the country where the employer is domiciled.
You know what's phenomenal about this? Obviously, the efficiency, right? But the human rights aspect is very, very important to me, because you also talked about a few moments ago, what the workers have to go through. Essentially, these people are looking for work. And very often they don't want to have to move the whole family. They're looking for work. So once they get this work, they've gone through the Joblio app. In fact, I'll have you walk me through how that works from the worker's perspective, right? How do they send their money back? Because even that's complicated sometimes, but you make that easy for them, correct?
Yeah, look, don't forget that most human trafficking starts with a job advertisement. That's false, right? So very, very transparency and direct connectivity is very important, because if you live today in a developing country and you would like to go through this upward social mobility by finding work and sending money back home, if there is no middleman, if you're able to do this directly and correctly, importantly, right, you're choosing your employment with the same kind of ease internationally as you're able to choose it domestically. But if you think in terms of upward mobility, upward social mobility, right, in terms of human rights and in terms of efficiency, think about think about the Afghan refugee crisis, the local one. How many of these people have skills, right? Nobody really knows, right? How many of them can be placed with employers who need these skills, right? The Western world, or I should say the developed world, has aged over the last 70 years and has built generational wealth. So unfortunately, for better or for worse, Norwegians today or Sicilians or the Portuguese or the Japanese, they don't want to do the same type of work that their parents and grandparents used to do because they don't have to. So the only way to sustain the economies of the developed world is to attract labor talent from the developing world. And if done in an unorganized way, what you have is inefficiencies and violations of human rights and loss of revenues and increased crime and increased poverty and also exploitation of children, right? So all of this comes from the non-transparency that exists today. When technology allows us to introduce transparency into this space and create a different, more transparent, more compliant ecosystem where human rights are protected, right? So when they send money home, it becomes easier also. So with Joblio, when we stay, Joblio is not just a technology platform. We're not just a platform, right? We're a hybrid between technology and the people behind the technologies. So we create an ecosystem for the labor migrant, where the labor migrant, which I don't really like the term, but that's the term, right? That's the ecosystem where the labor migrant lives from the moment that the labor migrant contacts Joblio until the labor migrant returns back home.
Okay, let me ask you this. Currently, how many countries are involved in Joblio in terms of the employer and the employee? And do we have this in the States yet? So answer those questions if you don't mind.
Yeah. So Joblio, so from the employee perspective, we are in over 40 countries because we have successfully been able to launch a grassroots ambassadorship program. Notably, about a month ago, we executed a strategic cooperation agreement with the Global Evangelical Movement, for instance, right? Which is 700 million people. So what we're trying to do is via unconventional ways, tell the people in the developing countries that, hey, y'all don't need to pay anybody to find work abroad anymore. You can come directly. So now on the business development side, where the employer side, we had initially launched in 2 EU countries, in Poland and Romania. And the reason for that is that these countries bring in more labor migrants than the rest of the European Union combined. Interestingly, both Poland and Romania, for every 3 people who leave these countries, only 2 people return. So even during COVID, the peak of COVID, when Polish people were confined to their homes to an extent because of the lockdown, Poland still brought in between 500,000 to 600,000 labor migrants, a remarkably high number, right? And I just returned from Poland a couple of days ago. The median age for their blue-collar worker is 48. So the shortage is going to grow exponentially. Good luck getting a plumber. Come to your house in Europe today. You'll wait for 4 days or 3 days, and the plumber that's going to come is going to be in his 60s, and you're going to pay like 5 times more money than before. So the skills, the lost skills, right? That's what's driving this organic movement of people, really.
Who else are you in talks with in terms of the employers, those countries?
Oh, so I had spoken at different seminars and events, Construction Technology Festival in Dubai. We presented to the International Organization of Employers, right, in Geneva a couple of weeks ago. We've had meetings with the IOM and all of the major organizations. And we are, however, very practical and pragmatic. So we go, it's business development, it's the economy, right? All economic situations come to an equilibrium at some point. So we're trying to create that equilibrium in an ethical way. So ethical recruitment is a term that was coined by the International Organization for Migration. And, there are many fancy speeches and white papers and presentations on the subject. And, the IOM had come up with DACA principles and Montreal recommendations, but really ethical recruitment only means 2 things: that you know everything about your proposed employment abroad and that you pay nothing to secure that employment. That's ethical recruitment. And that's what Joblio is here to kind of house that ecosystem, right? To create the ecosystem, the ethical recruitment ecosystem, where people's movements are going to become smoother, but also less problematic, much less problematic because of the truth. So it's just very simple. It's just about the truth.
Gosh, John, you're so passionate about this. Let's talk a little bit about your background. And why did you even develop Joblio in the first place? Let's talk about your personal experiences, please.
Oh, man. So I was born in Belarus in my teens. I was a refugee, stateless, living in a refugee camp environment in Italy, before that in Austria. And, then moved to the United States and became a lawyer. I'm a lawyer in New York. I haven't practiced in many years. And I began my career by practicing immigration law, and then I moved into the world of global corporate relocation, which is called global mobility now. And for 20 years, because I can relate to, I relate to the simple person, to the worker. I know what they go through because I went through it, right? Whenever you are moving from country to country, you're going through shock. And particularly if you had to pay and you don't know what the truth is. So I was always struggling my entire life and career. I was struggling with an idea of how do you fix this humongous, it's not just that it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. It's an industry that makes billions of people move, right? And I was always struggling. How do you do this? How do you make it efficient and transparent and without violations of human rights? How do you improve this? And technology makes it possible, because now you can upload information onto a platform and then you can look at it through a website or an application, and that made it possible. And it's really, my whole life and my whole career and all of my life experiences combined, that's what made Joblio. That's what put it in existence.
Did you come over here at a young age with your family, or were you by yourself?
I was 17 when I moved to the United States with my parents and my younger sister. So it was a family experience, and we lived in a refugee camp environment, with 4 families in a 3-bedroom apartment, and I had to work for a living when I was 16, and firsthand, I really get it. So, I really connect with the people who are moving, irrespective of where they are. It was very stressful, and it was probably more stressful for my parents than for me, although it was stressful for me, and it really shaped me. These experiences, they've shaped me, and here I am.
I like when you made that point earlier, that very often an immigrant person will come here and the work wasn't quite what they expected, and then they sort of leave their job, and they're also difficult to track down and find. And that's something I think people don't realize here in the States. They just hear the words illegal alien, undocumented workers, and they don't really put a face to the person, right? And they don't come here necessarily to cause a problem. They're coming here to get the work. And I like the idea that you take away the middle person who could really be pocketing a lot of money. Maybe there is no job there. And then these people are on the run, and that's got to be so stressful for them. And the fact that Joblio works to take that away is a real game changer.
Oh, insane. It's insane. Think about this. So I was on the call recently with a girl who works for the International Organization for Migration in Geneva. And she just came back from Ethiopia, where obviously there was a recent, military, crisis in Tigray province. So people from, so that's a very poor area. So in Tigray in Ethiopia, first they pay a local agent to find them work in Saudi Arabia, because to them, Saudi Arabia represents upwards mobility. Then they pay another set of people to take them to Somalia. Then they pay another set of people to take them on boats from Somalia into Yemen, which is engulfed in a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And then they pay smugglers in Yemen to take them to Saudi Arabia just so that they can start working illegally, by the way, making a couple $100 a month, right? So their level of sophistication dictates that I pay somebody for this. When in reality, there was a Saudi employer indeed waiting for the people to come. And there are these people who are willing to come work for the employer. So here you get rid of all of these people in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And and also Joblio facilitates documentation processing, because all different countries have different processes to get the work permit and the visa, but they're all very similar to each other. They require biographical data and biometric information. And Joblio facilitates collection of that data, and it catalyzes the process so that not only do you move more ethically and compliantly, and not only there is transparency, but also there is speed and efficiency. And we assist them because we've got a contract with China Union Pay, and hopefully, we've got technology people on staff who can explain this a lot better than I can. I'm explaining this very amateurishly. But before you go, you get a card, and 2 cards. One you leave with your loved ones at home, and the second one is the one where your salary is deposited. So when salary is deposited into your account, your husband or your wife or your mom can go and withdraw money in local currency. So essentially, our whole business model evolves around making the life better for the labor migrants.
How do you see this changing things globally? And by the way, you're right about that. A lot of people about cell phones, a lot of people might not realize that in some of the most impoverished countries, cell phones are often in someone's pocket. It is amazing to me. When I saw that myself, I thought, gosh, they're able to afford a cell phone. That's great. And I say that because they will be able to use Joblio to find work for themselves, because very often the phones are readily available in these countries. But where do you see it around the world, and how do you see this changing things globally?
So I think that, Joblio is, of course, it's a private company, but Joblio is also a force of nature, and it's become a movement. And it will become a movement. It will grow as a movement because it improves people's lives. So cell phones, like Southeast Asia now, refurbished Chinese Android phone costs $1. Almost 100% of Southeast Asia owns a phone. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think almost half or 40% of sub-Saharan Africans own smartphone technology. So the world is changing. The world is changing, and as we step into this post-COVID economy, it will change. It will change even more. So I see Joblio becoming the standard of cross-border hiring, because it's not only ethical, it's also profitable for the corporate sector, and it's very beneficial for the governments, for both governments. So our objective is like ISO 9001 is the standard for manufacturing. Our objective is to become the standard for cross-border hiring, and we will see more cross-border hiring than ever before, moving forward than ever before.
But what countries are you currently working with to try and get Joblio involved? And what about in the U.S.? Have they taken a look at this yet?
So the U.S., we're working in Europe now. So we're working in Poland. We're working in Romania. We're working now in Italy also. And interestingly, we're also working in Moldova. Moldova is a very interesting example. Moldova is a tiny European country that has always exported stuff forever, right? It's exported half of its population. Because it's exported its population, now it doesn't have local population to work.
Right.
So these trends are going to continue. Now, as far as the United States is concerned, I don't know the immigration code. I think that the immigration code in the United States is challenging. Unlike Canada, Australia, Japan, Israel, Cyprus, the United Kingdom, which allows companies to fill the void and the need by legally hiring people from other countries. In the United States, there are no visa categories that allow for efficient cross-border hiring, which is a whole separate conversation that I'd love to have over drinks, sometime. But it's challenging in the United States, and I wish it wasn't, because Joblio could really, a platform like Joblio, it could really resolve the problems that we hear about every day, right? People.
I mean, all you have to do is look at our border, and people are trying to cross the border primarily for work. I mean, they're leaving incredible situations from where they come from, and they're either sent back or they end up coming through somehow, and then they have to figure out a way to get those jobs, and there comes the middle person. And I hope that you're able to get a hold of someone, I don't know who that would be, right, in the United States, because I could see how this would be a tremendous asset. But as you said, it's complicated here. I see this as a global solution, though, John. Gosh, any parting words that you'd like to say about Joblio? I'm a big supporter.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. Well, we need more supporters, so we invite everybody, the whole entire world, to join Joblio, to fight the inequities that exist today, and we're really doing this to create very, very powerful impact, which we are creating already, because even people who are utilizing Joblio now, right, we're improving their lives. So we invite everybody to join us, and we need more friends everywhere. We need more friends in the corporate world. We need more friends in the world of finance. We need more friends who work for governments all over the world, right? So these are the parting words.
And Joblio is set up as a nonprofit, or how is it set up?
Joblio is a for-profit. It's a Delaware C corp. It's an American company. I'm hoping that maybe we'll be able to work in the United States one day. So while our C-level execs and the biz dev is headquartered in the United States, it's really global. I mean, our activity per se happens globally outside of the United States.
Of course, but it's important for people to know, in the United States, who want to contact you and get involved as well.
Oh,
you are incorporated here.
Contact at joblio.co. And to learn more about us, you can also visit join.joblio, Joblio, obviously .co, or you can just send us an email at contact@joblio.co.
Yeah, we'll put all that on our social media too, John. Gee, thank you so much for joining us and for explaining Joblio, how the employer can get in touch with you and the employee as well. And hopefully they're finding out about the Joblio app and they're connecting with it wherever they're from. How are you getting the word out to them?
Okay, so the global ambassador program, that is unique because we invented it. It works. So we're training pastors, for instance. So on Sundays, pastors throughout the world, okay, the evangelical pastors specifically now, but I'm reaching out to all the religious communities globally, right?
Right.
So we're very, very creatively. And then, of course, the power of social media, the power of Facebook. Deborah, when you tell people that you don't have to pay to find work anymore and everybody else wants to charge them money, it's easier.
Good point, John. Thank you so much for explaining that. I was thinking of that just before I was letting you go. It's like, hey, what about the folks looking for the work? So thank you very much for explaining the accessibility of Joblio to those folks. You're right, social media, and everybody's pretty social media savvy now, and they'll find it. So thank you very much for joining us. Will you update us from time to time on how things are going?
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
Oh, I've so enjoyed our conversation. So please look up Joblio on all social media platforms. You can email them. They'll answer you back, right? So I'm very appreciative that you joined us today for Deborah Kobylt Live, which is available sort of everywhere on social media. You'll find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and then on all audio platforms as a podcast. That's Deborah Kobylt Live. Please look up Joblio, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.